Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video where we're going to analyze the analysts from Week 6 wide receiver results. You ready?
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
Boom, boom, boom. Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
All right, let me explain what we're going to do in this video. Each week, we look at the rankings from a lot of experts on YouTube, out there on the internet, but we don't really analyze the analysts, and that's what we're going to do in these videos. We're going to do them sooner. We're going to do it Tuesdays in the future, but we got to have a starting point. We're going to do it today, so let's just get right into it. Well, the top player, Puka Nacua, was chosen by the fantasy headliners. Also, we're going to look at the fantasy pros. They both chose Puka to come in number 1. Obviously, he might have gotten injured, but that's the way it goes when we analyze the analysts. So now let's just expand this real quick. We're going to look at right now, this is fantasy pros. We're going to look at what they did. So out of the top 30, out of the top 10, they hit on 30% accuracy rate. So let's look at those. At Jaxon Smith-Njigba, he was predicted to be 3rd, and he came in at 2. And you look at George Pickens, he was predicted for 4th. He came in 1. And then Jamar Chase was predicted at 5. He came in 8th. Everybody else on this list missed. So that was fantasy pros. Now we're going to look at the fantasy headliners and said, ooh, they did a little bit better than the fantasy pros on the top 10 predictions. Let's just quickly go through that. So they got Jaxon Smith-Njigba. He was on the list. They missed out on Amon-Ra St. Got Drake London. They got Rome Odunze. He missed Egbuka. And they got Jamar Chase. And they also got Pickens. So at least they did better. But you see how hard it is to predict all these. No matter what you go in there, there's always curveballs. Now let's move on to the second tier here, 11 through 20. Now, we just look at this. Did the players 11 through 20 do better, or did they stay in the top 20? So that's what we're getting this next tier. So out of the 11 through 20, they hit on 20% accuracy. Let's look at those. You got Jalen Waddle was predicted at 14, came in at 20. Quentin Johnston, he got no rankings, so that was on the list. And then you also had DK Metcalf was predicted at 19. He came in at 7th. That was good for 20% on that second tier. So that was the fantasy headliners. We're going to move into the fantasy pros. So they did 30%. So you got McMillan. Quentin Johnson was on that list. He did not get rankings because of an ankle. Drake London, he was predicted at 17th. He got 3rd. And then DK Metcalf was predicted at 20, and he got 7th. So you see how hard it is. So the top 10 got 30%. 11 through 20 was 30% for fantasy pros. Now we're going to look at the last tier, 21 through 30, and then we're going to also look at the overall rankings. So let's do it. All right, so fantasy pros, they hit on 40% of that 21 through 30. Let's look at those. They got Xavier Worthy was predicted at 22. He came in at 24. Brian Thomas was predicted at 23. Came in at 9th. Chris Olave. Also Lad McConkey. And then you have a couple no rankings, whether they got yanked on the first time, but that was in the list. So overall, fantasy pros hit on 10 out of 30, which is good for 33%. Now, that's how hard it is for the experts. Now we're going to look at the fantasy headliners, and boom, they did much better. They got on the top 10, they hit on 40%. On 11 through 20, they hit on 20%. On the 21 through 30, they got 60% accurate. That was way, way better. And let's just look at who they hit on. They hit on A.J. Brown, predicted at 22, came in at 26. Brian Thomas, 23, came in at 9th. At 24, Kendrick Bourne, 24, 12th, came in at 12th. At 25, Ladd McConkey came in at 6th. At 26, Chris Olave came in at 22. And the last one they hit on was 29th. Wan'Dale Robinson came in at 11th. They came in at an overall in the top 30. They hit on 12 for 40% accuracy. And that is our ranking the experts. And you can see how hard it is to rank them. So don't forget to see more videos like this, to see and analyze the analyst results for each and every week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And good luck in today's fantasy football matchups or rankings.